We got married 2 weeks after I joined Kodak. I joined on the 20th of August 1973 and got married on the 14th of September 1973. So it was essentially our first home together.
Kodak sent a lot of children to America, but my parents wouldn't let me go. My brother worked at Kodak, and through him I could have gone as an evacuee to America, but my parents didn't want me to go.
Got a job with Kodak and moved then to the area, and we lived just adjacent to the main railway line in Wheelstone. But unfortunately, I got married on December the 21st. I joined Kodak in October, and so I finished my PhD thesis. I started my first job. We bought our first house all within a few months of arriving in Wheelstone from Norwich. We lived in Harrow guest house until about February because we hadn't completed on the purchase of our house. So our start to our married life was in a guest house where after breakfast they turned off the heating and it got very chilly. We used to go into Harrow and go into some of the shops there to just have a cup of coffee and warm up during the day.
And at the time that my father was working for Kodak, we lived in Pinner, in a new build house that we moved into in about 1952. And though it was a crescent, it was quite a small road. And I think I counted at least 4 or 5 neighbours who worked for Kodak.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you remember that.
Then after my first 5 years with Kodak, I was given the golden opportunity to go on an assignment to Eastman Kodak for a year in Rochester, Upper New York State. I got married 6 days before that, went off to the States. When I came back, my relatively new wife and I, we found a house in Harrow Weald.
Well, I started as an instrument mechanic apprentice, and there were 4 of us that started in the same year of the taking of 65. And because I had some good O-level results, they immediately put me on to an ONC course for my further education. And once I'd passed that, they then transferred me to a technician apprentice, which was more rounded in education and more rounded in knowledge of the Kodak trades and professions.
And my other speciality was working with Kodacolor film, which was the prize product in the Kodak family.
And then, you know, the other neighbour, I think he was in the engineering department. Well, our uncle was head of the salvage department, and we think our grandmother worked there for some time, and I think Mum worked there for a very short time.
There for a little while. In fact, I think out of the family, it was easier to say who hadn't been there for a while. I think that again is, you know, that's how it used to be quite a lot if there was a big employer in the area.
And actually, I worked at Kodak when I was in the 6th form. I worked in the film finishing department over the summer holidays in the general office, taking post around, making announcements over the tannoy. And then for my last year, when I did my A-levels, before I started nursing, I worked in the paper finishing department. Mm-hmm. I remember having to take the post around to various offices that were in the dark rooms, which was a bit intimidating because it took a while for your eyes to get used to it. And there would be people in there that would hide the post trolley and, you know, just...
I started Kodak when I was 15, so it really went through the war most of the time there. I was there 17 years, so I left in 1958. I got a job. I left school when the war started, when I was 14. I got a job in an insurance company who paid 12 and sixpence a week. And then my friend worked at Kodak, and she said, well, I get 25 shillings, which was double to what. So she said, why don't you ask to go? So I wrote to Kodak and got an interview, and that was when I started. When I first started, I was just a junior, and I just had to sift through negatives and big rolls of film and just check to see if there were any errors in there.
For my entire career, forget the job titles, I was operating in an area like an interface between manufacturing, marketing and research and development. And so for my first 5 years, I would test and use products the way a customer would, and if we were about to introduce new products into the marketplace, we would work with customers to see how it worked in their hands.
In terms of the job itself and the way my career worked out, I'm not sure quite what my expectations were when I joined the company, but I think, in some respects, they probably exceeded them. That the company was, I think it was a very caring company. It was really positive about personal development. It wasn't a, crack the whip, get the job done sort of attitude there. They really did invest in their employees in a lot of respects. And for a number of years, Kodak was a household name, very profitable company, and the general sort of paying conditions were good as well.
It was a team of about 9 people on the shift, and we did it on a rota basis as to what jobs we did. So you could be doing, like, working in the stores area where you'd be moving large rolls of photographic paper around, unloading them off lorries, and then storing them ready for the machine to be loaded onto the machine. You'd be making chemicals up, sort of inks for the photographic, the reverse of the photographic paper, the famous Kodak logo that was on the back of the photographs that everybody used to get.
I mean, after the Second World War, there were 2 sort of major chemical companies for top graduates to join. One was ICI and the other one was Kodak. So a lot of top graduates joined Kodak, which made the whole environments within Kodak very stimulating. I was always based at Harrow, but whilst working at Harrow, I worked as part of an internal management consultancy group, and we then could work at any Kodak facility, which includes the European sites as well. So I did a fair bit of work in Madrid and also in Milan. They're the 2 main areas. When you actually go into the dark area from white lights, it takes you 10 minutes or so to actually get your eyes to actually get used to dark conditions. So sometimes there will be a few sort of funny stories. I mean, for instance, I can remember this was in the coating, one of the coating areas, coating machines in Track 4, and it was Christmas. And the departmental manager would always come down and wish everyone a Merry Christmas. But of course, the departmental manager came in, and of course, he hadn't got his sight. And so, walks up to the coating machine. And at the time he walks up to the coating machine, there were 2 coaters there to see. Well, he started talking and wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and everything. And of course, the 2 coaters then backed away. Right, he couldn't see them, and we were all standing at the back watching him, and he was talking to the coating machine, wishing the coating machine Merry Christmas. And that was quite funny, and lots of little sort of stories like that.
I started in a technical department that was involved with evaluating new Kodak products, working with manufacturing and customers, and we did customer troubleshooting. So I had some good trips going out to visit and help customers, and I finished up after going through manufacturing and working on new ways of working, which was called lean manufacturing, which was a big thing coming in the the 90s and the noughties, which was very, very interesting. I finished up working on the logistics of moving Kodak products in and out of the factory and around the Kodak world, which was interesting in itself.
I got to go to Russia, I got to go to Poland, I got to go to Hungary, as well as trips to the United States. So I was very, very fortunate that the responsibilities that were being handed to a group in Harrow gave us that ability to travel. That was just absolutely superb.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a second home, and so many of our relatives and our parents' friends worked there. Whenever they went out, it was usually for some dinner and dance. Dad, I mean, he didn't often go out to things in the evening, but he often had like the Kodak Foremen's Association dinners, which were just the foreman.
Job that you really enjoy, great people around you, having a great social life associated with it as well. And the facilities, I mean, it was more than just, people talk about the Kodak site in Harrow, but it wasn't just the manufacturing stuff. There was a big sports field on the other side of Harrow View, and going back a few years, the Recreation Society building there as well, which was really quite a social hub as well. But I mean, over time, all kinds of things evolved. The research laboratories in particular were, for years, had always had a big Christmas party. It was always a fancy dress party. Those things became sort of legendary after a while. The fancy dress stuff, I look at some of the photographs now and I blush. But yeah, a lot of fun with that. Got involved. So a couple of friends of mine who worked in on manufacturing there set up a folk club. And you may see there's a guitar behind me. That's always been a lifelong hobby as well. And so we got involved in that for a few years. That we used to run on site then.
But what happened was, again, some social changes. If in the 60s and 70s, people used to live near where they worked, and so basically at weekends they were in the vicinity to play cricket, football, rugby or whatever, because they just walked down the road to the Kodak playing fields. Same thing with the theatre club and everything else. And
also you need to bear in mind, I mean, the Kodak Hall was the main civic area for Harrow for many years before the civic centre was built. So it was, used for civic events because it was, the largest hall in the area for quite a few years.
We were like a little family, really, because you were working, a lot of hours with these people, and you had to bond, and we went on outward bound, sort of bonding, exercises, and by and large, we all got on really well.
No, I mean, the situation in the company was changing considerably through that first decade of this, the 21st century. Things were getting tougher and tougher. The company was not transitioning into the digital field at all terribly well. And I think, like a lot of employees there, you started to wonder about your own future. I mean, traditionally, Kodak seemed to be one of these companies where it's never publicized as such, but this sort of job for life sort of concept, it's such a strong family feel about the company that, long-term employment there was almost a given in a way. But yeah, times were changing, it was getting tougher, and I think along with a lot of my friends and colleagues working there at the time, you start to look around you and think, what's next? So 2005 was a key moment for me, mainly because I had at that stage, I was still involved with the research laboratories there, but they were basically closing down the R&D labs across Europe at that time and just moving a small number up to a science park in Cambridge. And in fact, my last project was really ensuring that the IT infrastructure was in place with that move. So that was the time when, it's time to part ways.
Well, Sandra, yes.
Thank you. It says, presented to Michael A. Beach in recognition of more than a quarter century of loyal service with Kodak.
I joined on the 23rd of August 1965 and I left on the 29th of January in 1971. So in terms of the Tomlin family, I was quite rare, unique in fact, as once described to me, the only way a Tomlin leaves Kodak is either he retires or he goes out in an aluminium box. So I decided at the age of 23 to leave Kodak, which was a surprise to everybody, but everybody wished me well in getting some further experience in the outside world.